So Game of Thrones has officially finished, season 8 has been and gone, and there are a lot of people with very different opinions on it, myself included. So I thought I'd take the time to break down exactly why I thought this season failed from a storytelling perspective. In terms of character progression, writing, and character arcs, this season fucked so many of those things. So let's get right into it. Daenerys Targaryen has been one of the main protagonists since season 1, and we have followed her from her time as Khaleesi of the Dothraki to the Breaker of Chains and Mother of Dragons that we see on Dragonstone in season 7. Throughout the seasons it was made clear that Daenerys, while very understanding and compassionate, did have a side to her that was more ruthless and capable of brutal acts. But throughout the seasons it was always made clear that people around her and her own mind were in a permanent struggle, a balancing act between the compassionate side and the brutal side. And in season 8, she finally turns, becoming closer in resemblance to Aerys the Mad King than anything else. So why doesn't this work? Well, while it has been made clear that she has a brutal and ruthless side to her, she turns practically on a dime when Missandei is killed. There were a couple events leading up to it in season 8, but it happens very abruptly, resulting in her burning just about half of King's Landing's population. This very abrupt change in character left a lot of fans feeling very confused and frustrated. A very easy solution would be to have more seasons, so we could more gradually experience the decline in Dany's mental health. But this was so extreme and so fast that it left everyone with a bitter taste. I always liked Daenerys, but after that episode aired, I desperately wanted her to die. There was no way I could ever justify that. Granted, I saw her as a victim of poor writing first, but in terms of the show, that is canon, that actually happened. Therefore, I said to myself, well, okay, they better kill her then, because there was no way that she was capable of redeeming herself from this. Every single character in this entire show has lost people, but not one of them immediately turned to ruthlessness. Case in point, Arya. Well, the argument can definitely be made that Arya always had an aggressive side to her. She was always portrayed as ruthless after she had lost her family, murdering Lannister soldiers wherever she could see them, and eventually killing the Freys in their own castle. However, this was understandable, because it took 6 seasons to get her to that point, and an entire season of training with the Faceless Men. Therefore, the motivations are understandable, and consistent character progression is upheld. Daenerys' descent into insanity could have been consistent, and good, and understandable, if it wasn't so fucking rushed, and that is why Season 8 failed Daenerys Targaryen. There seems to be a common theme of this season of plotlines going pretty much nowhere. The one that sticks out the most to me is Jon being Aegon Targaryen, the son of Rhaegar Targaryen and Lyanna Stark, and the true heir to the Iron Throne. Ultimately, this really doesn't go anywhere. It was a plot device used to build up tension between Jon and Daenerys the rest of the Starks. And Varys being killed, but that's already really stupid, so we're not going to talk about that. It never really goes any further than that, and there's no real resolution to it. Jon never becomes king, and nobody in the public really knows his true lineage. So as a result, that whole storyline that started at the end of season 6, and has been a long-running theory of the show and the books, doesn't end up going anywhere. Nothing really comes of it. Well, nothing impactful anyway. Also regarding Jon, there was another plot point that ended up going nowhere. The conflict between him and the Night King. He doesn't get to kill the Night King. He doesn't even get to fight him in one-on-one combat, despite the fact that they have been nemesis since season 5. And Jon has been fighting the White Walkers since season 1. Sure, Jon's killed a few of them at Hardhome, but he never gets to fight the guy. It all goes to Arya fucking Stark, a character who has had nothing to do with the White Walker storyline. Someone who hasn't been in conflict with the White Walkers for very long. Now, why was this done? According to the showrunners, they always attempt to avoid the expected. In their own words,
it just didn't seem right to us for this moment.
It didn't feel right to them to have Jon kill the Night King. The reason this doesn't work is because the conflict between these two characters isn't really resolved. The Night King White Walker storyline is now ended, but Jon isn't the one who ended it, even though he's been in the fight since the earliest season. He ultimately doesn't matter in the resolution of that story. Because he kills White Walkers beyond the wall, you expect him to be the one to do it. Or maybe Sam, since he killed a White Walker before. Or maybe even Tormund, since he's been the one who's been persecuted by the White Walkers. He's been driven from his lands because of these vile creatures. Arya is a great character, but she is not linked to the White Walker Night King storyline. Her story is not intertwined with them. As a result, it feels cheap and frustrating to have her be the one to do it. Nobody is criticizing Arya for this, they criticize the resolution of the storyline. The conflict was between the Night King and Jon, not the Night King and Arya. The White Walker storyline as well is just as controversial too. They have been the longest running antagonists for the entire show. The first scene of the entire show deals with them. They have been built this entire time. 8 to 9 years, nearly a decade has been spent developing the White Walker threat. And it ends in one battle. A single night and one large battle, and the story is over. Right. The White Walker storyline is considered one of the biggest blue ball storylines in television. The writers really wrote themselves into a corner when they confirmed Season 8 would be the last. I and many others were concerned they wouldn't be able to wrap it up effectively in one more season. Don't get me wrong, they did wrap it up, but in the stupidest, most illogical and inconsistent ways. Ways that are not only not to the standard the show set itself, but just by the standards of logical character and story resolution. And they did it all so they could end the show and subvert our expectations. Great. To conclude this ramble, Season 8 is just awful. The characters make no sense, motivations are thrown out the window, and arcs are betrayed. And expectations are subverted in the stupidest ways, if not the worst ways. What did Cersei actually do this season aside from command Missandei's death? Oh god, that situation is illogical too, so I'm not even going to touch that.
How did they kidnap Missandei in less than 5 minutes? Fuck off, show.
This season's writing was a mess, sacrificing consistent writing and progression for the sake of wrapping it all up and avoiding the expected. All done in the stupidest and most frustrating ways for us, the audience. Or at least parts of the audience that care about good character progression, good writing, and satisfying conclusions to several storylines. I hope it was worth butchering one of the greatest shows of all time just so you could move on to Star Wars. Thanks D&D. I hate it. No wonder Kit Harington checked himself into rehab. And that is pretty much Game of Thrones Season 8 in a nutshell. Thank you very much for listening. I know it's quite topical to bitch about Game of Thrones right now, but it's definitely worth bitching about. This season really did sacrifice major storylines and character arcs just so they could end it all. To get somewhat positive and bittersweet, this show was genuinely incredible, and Season 8 ruined many of the best aspects of it. Regardless, if you liked this video or enjoyed the commentary, then give this video a like, maybe subscribe if you're feeling generous. I do plan on making more commentary videos, maybe on Thrones, maybe not. I guess we'll just see. I have my thoughts and I do enjoy the discussion. If you feel the same way or just like the sound of my voice, then I'll definitely make more content similar to this and my previous couple of videos. As short as these videos are compared to videos others have made on the subject, I do just enjoy the conversation and the process of making these videos. Eventually I'll probably make a really long analysis once I'm more comfortable with all this. In any case, thank you again for watching and listening. Look out for any new videos that come up from me. I might try out some positive topics, I don't know. With the way that entertainment is going right now, that might be kinda difficult. Anyway, thank you again for watching, and I'll see you later in the next analysis.